This episode is a little thinner this week as many of the teams were on their bye week, but Creekside had a thriller of a game against Fleming Island, while the Surf and Turf Bowl was a game of two totally different halves. We have all the coverage for you on this week's edition of the 32081 Scoreboard Show.
It's time for the 32081 Scoreboard Show. Let's recap the latest weekly scores and highlights from around the county.
And thank you for listening to the 32081. And that's right, I am the Todd, and I am going to be here on the kind of an abbreviated version of the Scoreboard Show. Because why? Because everybody was pretty much on bye week. However, the couple games we had out there were fun to say the least. And the first person we're going to have on the show is Mike the Knight, where Creekside taking on Fleming Island is always an interesting game. Mike the Knight, this one did not disappoint again.
No, did not. You kind of expect it now with the any Creekside Fleming game. You always know it's going to be exciting, and you always know it's going to come down to the bitter end.
This is one that you don't leave early. You just don't leave early.
You know, it's funny that you say that because it started raining and my parents left early, and then my dad called me while I was on the way home, and he's like, "Did I see right? Did Creekside win that game?" And I said, "You guys left?" And he said, "Yeah." I says, "This is one game you never leave. It always comes down to the last second."
And this one came down to literally the last 13 seconds, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. So we scored, I believe, with about 20 seconds left on the clock. Jackson Earl scored go-ahead touchdown, and I think Fleming maybe got like two plays off in the final 16 seconds or so after the kickoff. But once again, crucial 4th and goal stop by Creekside in the fourth quarter that really kind of flipped the momentum there. What kept Fleming in it is they had two blocks of punts, and the second one was a scoop and score for a touchdown that gave them the go-ahead lead. But like I said, fortunately, we were able to come back and win.
One thing we've been talking about this season with the Knights is the young defense. You've had some returners come back there, how the defense was going to come together. We knew about the offensive side. So how's the defense looking? Because they only gave up 27 points to Fleming. It seems like they've kind of come into their mold a little bit. You're going into your Atlantic Coast game, which will decide the district if you win your district champions again. Is this defense starting to find its rhythm as you get into the final half of this season?
Yeah, I think it is, Todd. I think that score is even a little bit more deceiving because, like I said, they got, 7 on a block punt for a touchdown, and then they had another block punt where they had a short field that led to a touchdown as well. So, I mean, really, you can't put those 14 points on the defense. Special teams was the downfall on Friday night. Defensively, I think all in all looked pretty good. And I tell you, shout out to the offense, too, because going into this, our starters were very young on the offensive line, and we have 3 of those young guys were out with injury Friday night. So they were replaced with, sophomores and juniors as well, and guys also that had never played before. And they filled in and did a great job of giving Rossi protection and giving Davis Baldwin some holes to run through. So, a shout out to the O-line Friday night.
I think also what's going to be interesting, if you ask me, is how is Mac going to approach, and again, I don't want to look ahead. I know everyone says go week to week, but Atlantic Coast has been down. They haven't played as well. So let's say Creekside goes in, takes care of business, wins the district, and you're in the playoffs at that point. It's going to be interesting, don't you think, how he approaches those last 2 games, because you got Ponte Vedra to wrap up the season, which is a big rivalry. We're playing right here in St. Johns County, so the kids are going to go at that one. And you got Rains, who's just rolling right now. They're playing one of the best teams in the state. I think, to your point, you got to balance injuries and going into the playoffs also with wanting to end the season on a high note. And I think that's going to be very interesting to see how he takes, especially the defense, because you got to have your defense healthy when you roll into districts. And I was kind of wondering not districts, but playoffs, kind of wondering what you thought about that.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, if ever there was a team, I kind of wish our bye week was a little earlier in the year. I wish we kind of had been off when the rest of the county in the area was. We've got some
could have just been off guys this week. Everybody else was, right? I mean,
exactly.
I mean, it's almost like they planned it. They're like, hey, let's all take it off because it's the Surf and Turf Bowl and it's Creekside Fleming Island. So we're all just going to take it off because that's where everybody's going to be anyways.
And let's go watch those games. Yeah, no, I mean, we're a beat up football team right now. We've got, even the guys that are playing are banged up. pretty good. So this is a team that's really in need of some time off to heal up. So, we'll get that, that bye week doesn't come until, later
After
in
rains,
the
right?
year.
It's between rains and Ponte Vedra,
After
right?
rains. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. After rains. So, to your point, I mean, they got to take care of business this Friday night against Atlantic Coast to get the district wrapped up. I would think, and you never know what Coach Mack is going to do. I would think, maybe you have guys on a short leash for the Reigns game, and if things start to go sideways, as it has with many of Reigns, if not all their games this year, that you start, plugging in some backup guys early just to keep those guys, other guys healthy and give them some extra time to heal before we go into the Ponte Vedra game.
And that's easy for me to say, sitting behind a microphone. And that's
totally
exactly what I'm talking about, because you got the bye week, you're going against Ponte Vedra, and I don't want to say games don't matter, but what I do want to say is that you've got to look ahead and say kind of like, okay, I need these guys healthy. What is this game worth to us? Because we know we're already going into, the playoffs, and that's kind of what I'm saying. But again, it's easy for me to say that sitting behind a microphone.
Yeah, and it's, and we've said it since the very beginning of the season. I think the first show with you, I told you, we're not a very deep team. There's very few positions on the team where we have a lot of depth. So I think, you got to take a step back and kind of, preserve, the health of your starters, because there's a lot of positions where the gap in ability between the first guy and the second guy, it's a sizable gap. So, and again, it's all about, winning district first. So I think we go, full throttle this week against Atlantic Coast. But then, at that point, maybe you start thinking about, getting some younger guys, some experience, and, protecting the health of, some of your starters that are dinged up. But that's me and you,
Absolutely.
Coach Mack, he's a leader of that program for a reason. So,
Yeah.
I trust whatever he decides to do.
Yeah, and I'm not going to jinx anything. I haven't called any shots this year. I'm just going to say I feel good about the Atlantic Coast game. That's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to call a winner. I'm not going to go because I'm not going to jinx anything. But I feel good about the Atlantic Coast, and and you're right. Mac's in that position for a reason. I'm sure he's got a plan set. Depending on the outcome of the Atlantic Coast game, about how to approach Range and Ponte Vedra to roll into the playoffs. So let's see. We got Atlantic Coast this Friday kicking off at 7:00 at home at the Castle. Then you'll be traveling to Rains on the 17th. Get your bye week to get a little rested up before finishing off the regular season on October 30th. That's a Thursday. I guess people are trying to avoid the Halloween on Friday night against Ponte Vedra. So, and that one's at 7:00. So, Mike the Knight, thank you very much for joining us, and best of luck to you this week as you host Atlantic Coast.
Thanks, Todd.
And now, after checking in with Mike the Knight, we're going to shoot on over to Beachside. We're going to talk to Billy the Bull first because, Billy, I told Mike there's really only two games on the docket for us to talk about. That's Creekside and Fleming Island, and, of course, the Surf and Turf Bowl, the Tocoi Toros against the Beachside Barracudas. Now, before we get into this, I kind of want to make and I want to see if you agree with this. I watched this game, and I really think this is a tale of two halves. I don't. Yes, Beachside won, 45-14. We'll be talking to Cuda Mike a little bit later about that. But when you look at the first half versus the second half, it's really two distinct games because in the first half, Tocoi had to have been excited. They were holding the Beachside Barracudas to a 10-7 score at halftime. Eddie Jordan, they did a great job of putting pressure on him. And, Dolan, who we'll talk about, had a fantastic game running the ball. And Carter Alvarez, for what he's been thrown into since Lucas got hurt, I thought played well enough in the first half as well. So that first half, if we can start there, I think went very well for the Toros. And I think Coach Kevin Dolan had a great game plan going into it.
It's definitely a tale of two halves. I remember last week, I think I heard somebody say you can throw the records out with these two teams because of the proximity and logistics of how close we are. And 1 year difference between the age of these schools, and everybody knows each other on these teams. So, it is a lot of fun. The atmosphere was great. We were able to dodge the rain for the entire game, so that was great to not have to be in rain. So it was a lot of fun, but it was a tale of two halves. The first half, we went down 7-0. At the end of the half, it was 10-7, but the defense did their job. They got out of there on some third downs. They got out of there on some fourth downs. And I know Coach Dolan had made a few changes in the defense to be able to handle Eddie and that offense because they spread them out. And that was something we were worried about. And we were able to maintain control of the game and keep it keep it a little bit slower pace. And it was fun to watch. It was probably the best half I've seen since the injuries. And we were dealing with injuries before this game as well. So the couple things that happened in that first half, one, we tied it up 7-0. They came down and kicked a field goal. It was just good football. And
it was really good
had
football. It was a great game if you were there.
And we had a chance to tie it up with a field goal. Unfortunately, we came up short on that field goal. But towards the end of the half, we got a big stop from the defense. Under a minute left, I think it was around 30 to 35 seconds left. It was 3rd down and 5. We took a shot at the end zone. Unfortunately, we did not get that, and that could have put us up 14-10. So we went for it on 4th and 5 instead of kicking it to tie it up on this one. And we did not get the 4th down, so we went into the half 10-7. But we're getting the ball coming out of the second half, and that's where it all changed.
Yeah, it did. And this is the thing, too. Before we get into the second half and what happened there, in my opinion, but a couple things here. One, like you said, the defense played great. To hold a quarterback like Eddie Jordan to really rely on his running back, Alega, to do what they did, first of all, hats off to the defense on that. The other thing, too, is that I kind of mentioned about, Coach Dolan and his offensive plan. Carter Alvarez was, he's an athlete. We've said that. He was brought over to quarterback when Lucas got hurt. And, I thought the key for him, though, was actually Andrew Dolan, who had a fantastic night running the ball against the Barracudas, took the weight off of Carter's shoulders. And, Carter, for all intents and purposes, he played a really good game. And, you could see that he wasn't a full-time, and I'm using air quotes, full-time quarterback, and he was converted over there from defense with Lucas's injury, because there were a couple plays like with Brighton Baker, he just led him a little too far, and you go, ooh, that would have been a first down, or a little bit here, but you couldn't be disappointed about it. You're like, he had a really good game.
It was the best half I've seen out of Carter Alvarez, and that is why I was so looking forward to the second half of this game, and I was like, the light bulb might have gone off for him in that first half. And in the first drive of the second half, we had an interception thrown, middle linebacker was sitting there. He did not see him. He was taking it back, and that's when the unfortunate became reality for us. And Carter Alvarez tried to make a tackle on that interception and has broken his wrist as well. So now we're down 2 quarterbacks.
Yeah, and that's what I want to ask you about, because when he came out for the first drive, and that's when I noticed it. So it's 10-7, Barracudas are leading, and Tocoi gets the ball at the kickoff. So now you're wondering, okay, because again, Tocoi's been putting together long drives at this point, and his first pass looked like someone tipped the ball. Like it just wasn't him. And I'm going, was that tipped? What happened? And then I'm following him, and I see him shaking his wrist. Yeah. I'm like, something's off. And then he throws a second one, and you see him, I can't remember if he threw it or he handed off, but either way, he then comes off in the middle of the play, and you see him talking to Dolan, holding his wrist. I'm like, this can't be good. I mean, I feel for the kid, because that kid has fought. He's played very well. You saw him coming in, and I think then it just, at that point, you just don't have the chemistry at all now with Carter and Lucas out, and that's very tough for an offense to kind of rebound for. They go 3, they have some 3-and-outs, and now your defense, who's been playing very well, they're on the field for a long time. So it had to be a difficult second half for them.
It was tough to see it, and we got banged up on the way through the third and the fourth quarter. We lost 2 or 3 more starters during that game, and we're waiting to see what their situation is. I know there was a knee and ankle. We had offensive linemen that were out as well, so it's a tough situation that we're going into. But some kids really stepped up, which was what we needed to see. Andrew Dolan's been stepping up all year as our starting running back. As Vinny's over there with the opponent that we played with, but he is stepping up way over 100 yards this game. Connor Souch on the defensive end, number 4 at 41. He got an ability to get into this game, and he was so close to Eddie so many times, and then he was finally getting him. He got Vinny a couple times in the backfield. So the kids really stepped up, and we're going to have to step up this week for sure, because Buchholz is coming to our house, and we'd rather have a bye week this week to try and heal up a little bit.
And that's key too, right? Because Buchholz is coming off a big win against Nice, and they follow up with a 44-0 win against Gainesville. At least they're coming to Tocoi, right? And I always say it, anything can happen on any given Friday. It really can. And so, but I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Like I said, I feel bad for Lucas. I feel bad for Carter. It's sad to see two kids that love to compete so much go down with injuries as well as anybody else. But from a Tocoi perspective, seeing that first half, I'm looking at this. I know it's Coach Kevin's first year. As a fan, Billy, you've got to be excited where this program can go in the future, seeing how these kids are fighting, this deep into the season.
It is. I mean, and we're going to have to continue to do it because we've got tough games the rest of the season. So these kids that weren't playing early in the season are going to get an opportunity to get on the field these next few weeks because we have players that are out and we don't know how long they're going to be out. So the opportunity is going to be there to work hard in practice, to get things that you might not be doing correctly and make your strengths better and develop the weaknesses. But we're going to have them step up. And this will help them next year as well moving forward because when this core group gets healthy, the underclassmen are really talented and, the quarterbacks get back. But hopefully we can figure out the quarterback situation. And I know Kevin Dolan's going to have a game plan that's going to be it's going to be creative, and we're going to have to figure out what we're going to do against Buchholz.
Well, listen, before we go to the other side of the field and check in with Cuda Mike, I got to say thank you again, Billy, for checking in with us, and we wish you guys the best for your game against Buchholz this week.
I appreciate it, Todd.
All right, now we're going to switch over from the Tocoi side of the field, and we're going to head over to the home side, and we're going to talk to Cuda Mike. Cuda Mike, you had to be happy. A little nervous at halftime, but you had to be happy with the end result.
Yes. It was a big win. The big thing, we got a lot of rest. When you have a bye week, you come off a little rusty. That was the big thing during this game.
And the thing too is kind of like what I talked to Billy about is that it was really a game of two halves, and you got to kind of hand it to Tocoi. They had a good game plan, but when you have a great quarterback like Eddie, and then you have a team that prepares for that, guess what? And you can switch over and say, hey, we're going to hand the ball off. And Galea had a heck of a night at running back. You put together these long drives. I mean, that's just a big threat. I just see Beachside being at the top of this district, and when you can go from the Eddie breaking records to a running back running the way Galea did, I mean, that is just pure danger.
Right. It was two halves. Each team in the first half had the ball 3 times. Each team had a long, extending drives the first half and ended up being 10-7. It was a battle the first half, back and forth,
Yes, it was.
And then the second half, the offense got started off, got good. We scored a touchdown. And then the defense and the special teams put Tocoi in a bind with a 60-yard interception down to the 5-yard line. And then we block a punt inside the 10. And then we just ran the ball from there. We scored quickly.
Yeah, and I hate to put it this way, but also when Carter Alvarez left with an injury, I kind of felt like the defense really smelled the blood in the water. I mean, they were going at it all night. Marco Lanza had a big night, but the defense in general was able to, Dolan gave them a run for their money, no pun intended. He had some good yardage on him, but the defense really bowed up in that second half. And like you said, it was also a complete game on the special team side. So going into the final, third of the season here, Beachside's got to be feeling pretty good about where you're at right now.
Yes. We're all clicking on special teams, blocking. The offense is grooving with the running attack and the passing attack. The defense is not giving up the big play. We're just we're gang tackling now. But that bye week, when you have your bye week from Nice, you're gonna look a little rusty when you come out of the gates.
Yeah, absolutely. And Mike, this week you got a district game with Fleming Island, who has not been very successful against the St. Johns County boys. They lost to Ponte Vedra. They lost to Creekside in a thriller this week, and now they're coming over to the Reef. So they might be going back across the St. Johns River, not so happy campers about having to play St. Johns County.
I know. This is our district championship game. We have to beat Fleming to win the championship. They're going to come out. They like the running game. They're physical on defense. So we have to be prepared for that this week.
Is that the way that's going to work, though? I just thought about when you said that. So if Beachside beats Fleming Island, that's pretty much the district championship then for Beachside, correct? I mean, there's
correct. We still got 2 other good, decent teams in the district.
In Middleburg and Orange Park.
Yeah. So us by winning this big game this week, that puts us 2-0 in the district.
But mathematically, it becomes more difficult for everybody else, correct?
Right. Correct.
Okay. So, yeah. Okay. So, hey, listen, thanks again. And real quick, just so everyone knows, since we've been talking about Creeks Athletics football, flag football, that's still open for registration. The price just went up, correct?
Correct. We're the girls' league 6, 7, and 8 closed today. We just did the skills evaluation, but anything 9 and above is still open till next weekend. But the price did go up.
Okie dokie. So if you guys want to get signed up quick. It's a great organization. All right, Cuda Mike. By the way, I was asked about, where Scuba Steve was. I'm just saying, some of the Tocoi people heard us talking, asked where Scuba Steve was. I said, well, I haven't pulled it off yet. So just to let you know, people are out there looking for Scuba Steve. So
he was there for a brief moment.
Well, was he?
Yeah, they wouldn't let him in the stadium. So Scuba Steve had to backtrack for a little bit. We saw him after the game when the storm came running through. Thunder and lightning came through after the game, puddles, backed up, traffic for 30 minutes trying to get out of the parking lot. So
it was probably his big tank that probably scared people. That's probably what the problem was. Yeah, I got that. So, all right, listen, good luck hosting Fleming Island over at the Reef this Friday night. We look forward to catching up with you. And again, remind everybody, go check out Creeks Flag Football and sign up your youth to play in a great league this fall and winter season. Thanks again, Cuda Mike.
All right, thanks, Todd. Talk to you soon.
So once again, your scores were Creekside over Fleming Island, 30-27, and Beachside 45, Tocoi Creek 14. Your schedule for this week, and it's all district matchups, so it's going to be a great Friday night with all games kicking off at 7 o'clock. Nice travels to Bartram. Fleming Island heads to the Reef at Beachside. Ponte Vedra crosses the St. John's as they head to Middleburg, and St. Augustine is headed to Clay. Next week, our whole cast of characters are back, including a new Making the Call with Abigail. For Mike the Knight, Billy the Bull, and Cuda Mike, I'm the Todd, and thanks for listening to the 32081 Scoreboard Show.
Thank you for listening to the 32081. We hope you enjoyed today's episode.
I love the show, guys. You're awesome.
Please don't forget to subscribe to the show so you can join us for the next episode.
I never miss an episode. It's the best.
Until next time, take care.